Welcome to Straight from the Muzzle, folks, where we are anything but straight. My name is Space.
And I'm Paradox.
And we welcome. Oh,
Welcome.
shoot.
Retake.
No, I'm just going to keep it. It makes it fun. We welcome you to our show, which is about what today?
We actually have a special guest here today that we are interviewing. They go by Dr. Entobird.
And,
hello.
Sorry, I totally interrupted. I totally just talked over Paradox. Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name's Aaron, or Entobird online. I use they, them pronouns. I'm an entomologist by trade. I study insects.
Mostly just insects, or do you study anything else?
I've dabbled in kind of all of zoology and some other topics. I did a minor in endocrinology too, but mostly it's focused on the bugs. I love the bugs.
That's cool. Do you have any pronouns that we need to go over? Or
Yeah, I use they, them pronouns.
They, them. Right on. Do you got a persona?
I do. I have a couple. One is like a griffin kind of character. It's a bird. And the other is a deer.
Oh, cute.
So it's a griffin. Last night we were talking. Space said that it was potentially a Dutch angel dragon. I'm like, I don't know about that. It looks kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, it was funny because when I first made the character, I just wanted something really unique. So I smashed two species I'd never seen together. It was a hummingbird and a ring-tailed mongoose. And I didn't know what to call it. So I was just like, I'm a griffin.
I love it.
Well, at first I was like, are they like a parrot? Plus, because Paradox, you thought it was a parrot or a bird plus red panda.
Shoot. Yeah, red panda.
Yeah, I get that a lot too.
So we were trying to figure it out. And then there was I've seen one picture where it's the bird head and then it's the rest of the fursuit was kind of like an animal. And I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, are they just playing around with fursuit heads or is this like their actual fursuit? I'm trying to figure this one out.
It's a funny story too, because when I first got the fursuit, the very first thing I did was fursuited at an insectarium, just kind of wandered around and taught people about insects. And there was a lot of kids there. And so many of the parents were like, oh, go get a picture with the penguin. Go get a picture with the monkey. Go get a picture with the platypus. All these different things getting thrown out there. It was so funny.
That is hilarious. Oh my gosh.
That's awesome. How long have you been in the fandom?
About 13 years now.
Not bad. It's probably about maybe the same for me, 13 or 15 years.
Yeah, probably the same. I'm a young pup, though.
Stop being a follower. Find your own thing. Okay, we both have been in the fandom here for about 15 years. No, I'm just kidding. There's one other thing I wanted to ask you, but I'm going to actually have you hold that answer because it might be something we'll ask later on.
Okay.
So, why bugs? And then, more or less, what is entomology and why are you into it?
I mean, entomology is just the general biological study of insects, insect life, and all it encompasses, the genetics, the species, the behaviors, everything. And bugs for me is kind of why am I me as well. It's a weird interdisciplinary kind of cross-section of my life where I've just always been fascinated by them. Anytime I was out in nature when I was a very little kid, I was nose to the ground, paying attention to the creepy crawlies and just loved the colors and all the things I saw them doing. The things like metamorphosis really was one of the first things that caught my eye. I have little journals from as young as 2 to 3 years old where I would be drawing caterpillars and keeping them in cages and watching them grow. And I think that just that sparked my lifelong passion to just keep watching them and seeing what they're doing. And it ended up connecting with me on a personal level later on in life through a metamorphosis of my identity and sexuality and all that stuff. I just kind of found, comfort and in a weird way community. I felt different. I felt weird in where I grew up. It was a very small conservative town and it was easier to be known as weird because I like bugs rather than for anything else. So I kind of confided in them and then came into myself when I was able to go out and study them further at university and stuff like that. So yeah, just a lifelong journey.
I'm just imagining something. Imagine you going into a wooded area or just a heavily populated area with bugs and you just kind of going up to them and be like, you guys accept me, right?
Oh, you have no idea how true that is.
Oh, no way. I'm sure it's no different than talking to like an animal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we like to personify things, and like, if you don't have a lot of friends, you're kind of like, oh, talking to your stuffed animals or talking to your imaginary friend. For me, my imaginary friends when I was very, very little was like talking to the anthill and being like, what are y'all up to today?
Oh my God, I love it.
It's so awesome.
What's your
So
favorite
great.
movie, Ants, growing up?
Oh, see,
Ants in a Bug's Life.
Is that movie even like actually correct?
no, it's kind of upsetting.
Oh.
It's pretty bad. I definitely watched all of the like bug themed animated movies growing up, but I never really liked them because they were always like, oh, this isn't right. This isn't like, I mean, especially with how these mostly Disney movies and stuff like that are coded. There's a lot of erasure on the biology and what's actually going on. So it was always not as fascinating as, say, like a documentary. Like I loved like Attenborough's documentaries growing up and stuff like that. Or on the other side, I was a huge anime nerd and I loved things like Totoro and Spirited Away.
Love Totoro. I was watching that last week at work and I was just like, this movie gets me.
I know. It's so good. And the caterpillar bus, like, so good.
Is that what it is? It's a caterpillar bus?
Yeah, it's like, more cat than caterpillar, but they actually call it the caterpillar bus.
It's just such a cute. I would love to ride. I would love if there was like a Studio Ghibli kind of like theme park and you could ride in the cat bus. Like it'd be like
that would
a
be
monorail,
so cool.
like it just goes around, but it would still be really cool.
That would be really cool.
That would be so sweet. And then you could do like a Kiki's delivery service where you get on a broom.
Oh yeah,
that would be so cool.
So cool. But yeah, Totoro specifically also, like, I mean, a lot of the early part of the movie is the kids going out in nature and like collecting tadpoles and seeing all the creepy crawlies in the new house. And then the opening sequence, like that whole song and all of the credit pieces is like about the bugs. Like there's, spiders coming down into the opening credits.
Yeah, I was wondering why that was. I'm like, I don't recall like this being a bug movie.
Yeah, but so I think it's the nature thing. Like the kids are always out there and like exploring the woods. One of the scenes that stands out to me is the kids are with like the Totoro and the little sprites and they're trying to grow up their garden and stuff. And it's like that connection to nature that you're feeling while you're doing that and that you're a part of it. And it's dreamy.
I bet. Studio Ghibli does such a good job with telling a story, the music behind it, and the art in it. I mean, just like, can you find a better, like, suitable replacement? No.
No, there won't be anything like it.
No.
What exactly do you do? I was just going to say, what do you do?
Go for it.
We are one brain cell.
We are.
I was just going to say, like, to follow up, what exactly do you do on a day-to-day basis?
So, I mean, most of my days is a little boring. It's mostly like, the computer and the lab work where you're analyzing the data, writing up the data, writing papers and books and stuff like that. So not as exciting as I would like people to believe field biology is. But over the summer, like this time of year, when all the insects are active, we're actually out in the field doing experiments. Like for my PhD work, which I just finished, I was on agricultural fields and farms and sampling ants and other insects in amongst the crops. So actually being out and doing that kind of stuff is really exciting and getting to discover and see new things. And then the majority, like I would say 70% of the rest of the year is just writing it up and conveying all that information.
So does that mean like you work for someone specifically, or do you work for like a university?
Yeah, so I'm a postdoctoral fellow right now at the University of Guelph in Canada, and it's just like a contract to do some research, and I also do teach some of my own classes and that kind of thing at the university.
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Does anybody else like in your field like know that you're part of the fandom?
Yes, in a weird way. I never made it very obvious or pushed it or anything like that. But a few years ago, I went on a course dedicated to science communication, and I was doing a lot of my science communication through the fandom on YouTube and TikTok and all of that. And because it was so connected to that side of myself, I brought the fursuit and I really like made the science communication a part of that. And then when I came back, a lot of people had seen the things that I was doing at this course, and everybody loved it. Everybody accepted it. And so I weaved it in a little bit more. And so people generally know that I am a part of the fandom and I do this kind of stuff, but I don't I don't talk about it all the time or anything like that when I'm at the university.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Let's start today's class. I'm a furry. All right. Any questions?
I have taught in fursuit though during one Halloween.
That's so cool.
That's great. I'd love to see pictures and or like a video of that. It'd be great.
Yeah, I have a little clip of it. It was a lot of fun. I was teaching a course on science communication, specifically like how to connect people with nature. And it just so happened that one of the labs fell on Halloween, and I was doing mini lab on improv and just kind of using my persona as an example of that I do a lot of stage performance and stuff using it. And all the class in general loved it.
That is so
That
cool.
is so cool.
You mentioned you do a lot of research projects. What what are you researching or what are you experimenting with?
So it's a variety of things. I get contracted a lot by various cities, parks, and provinces in Canada, also other places around the world for identification of ants or doing surveys. So collecting a certain number of species and saying, oh, this is generally what's found in your park, and these are the key species that are doing this and that. That happens a lot. Part of the university, it's more applied stuff. So right now, the project I'm contracted to do is looking at how microplastics in soils impact various invertebrates. Specifically, I'm looking at ants, but other members that I've taken on for the lab are doing things like isopods or pill bugs, worms and springtails, all kinds of stuff. And then for my PhD, it was the same kind of thing, but looking at pesticide use. So how does pesticides impact non-target insects, a part of the ecosystem? So ants, again, were my focus, but also on things like flies and bees and all kinds of stuff like that.
I'm going to shoot from the hip here and ask a question. I know you're not probably in the area of where all the fires are happening.
I am.
You are?
Oh,
yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So I kind of just thought to myself here, I was just thinking, do insects have a heightened sense like animals do when danger's near?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Insects are really good at being able to tell certain environmental conditions or certain things that are going to come on. There's a really interesting ant species called Aphaenogaster picea. It's a very common species found in forests around North America, but it's really important for forests because with, this regular removal of the forest through whether it's fire or windfall, they are part of the ecosystem which will allow succession to happen. So the forest to grow back up. They collect seeds in the environment, bring them into their nests and help them grow because there's increased nutrients in their nests, and they also tend to them and help funnel water around the roots, all kinds of stuff like that. And they're very good at telling when fire is about to happen, whether it's like they can sense some of the chemicals that are in the environment from when a fire has started, or if it's just really dry, they start to dig deeper into the ground so they won't be impacted by it. And then they're one of the first things up back on the surface of the soil, and they're collecting some of those seeds that have survived. And in these forests that regularly have fire, a lot of the seeds actually are serotinous, or they either require that fire to grow, or they will be able to survive even if they are burned on the outside. And the ants know that, and they rely on that, and they collect these seeds and bring them back to the nest.
That is interesting.
That is really cool.
Is there a short name to that ant that you mentioned?
Yeah, so
are they called something specific?
I don't think there's a common name. The genus in general is called thin-waisted ants, but I think it's just the North American picea is another common name, but it's still not very easy. Yeah, it's too bad because a lot of common ant species don't have good common names. Most insects in general don't have good common names just because there's so many, but also, people don't care as much about naming the things that are creepy and crawly.
Those ants look huge.
I have not pulled up a picture yet.
They look big, but they are pretty small when you actually are up next to them. They're not too big.
We used to go to our friend's cabin when I was younger up in the Sierra Nevadas. And every time we get there in the summer, we would have to clean the house, not of just regular ants, but the ants that fly around. It was such a nightmare because they're everywhere.
Yeah. And ants typically, when you see the winged ones, they're queens to be in males, and they really do swarm in ridiculously large numbers. All of the ants in an area will tell, okay, this is the time where we fly and we mate. Every nest has upwards of thousands of these queens and males. And yeah, you just get literal swarms of hundreds of thousands.
Sorry, ants just like, oh.
I get it. But they're also just so cool.
I bet.
Actually, your reaction reminds me of like the next like question that we're probably gonna mention. Like, what is the one bug that just makes you say nope?
Nope.
Like,
so,
no.
It's tough because there is no bug I will say nope to. Like, in terms of like just interest and also what's to learn, like I am always down to be studying or like reading up on any insect and like even getting up and close and personal with them. I mean, there's the obvious insects which are just uncomfortable to be around. Like, I've done so much field work in bogs and swamps, and mosquitoes are just the worst.
They
In
are
northern,
the worst.
like Ontario and New Brunswick, it's just awful. But even still, I still love to study them, and I think mosquitoes are still really cool.
I can just see you like sticking out your arms and being like, suck my blood.
I have done that. So there's an area of research within entomology, which is the study of these blood-sucking insects. And one of the things you have to do if you're raising them in culture in the lab is give them a blood meal. And the easiest blood meal that you can give them is often off your own body. So if you're raising mosquitoes in the lab, you often have to feed them yourself. Or I was a part of a lab that was studying bed bugs, and you have to stick your hand in and just let them suck for a little bit. And it's uncomfortable, but part of the job.
Oh, that's so weird.
That is so.
Oh my God.
We ran into
like,
a true or false.
Feed my babies.
Yeah, feed. Feed. I was going to ask you this question later, but I kind of want to know now that we're on the topic of mosquitoes, and I'm sure you're probably anticipating my question. Yeah. Is it true that if they're sucking and you flex, they explode?
It is true. It depends on where they're sucking and how full they are, but some mosquitoes will not stop. And if they get stuck, because if you're flexing, your skin gets tighter and their proboscis can't get out, they'll just keep sucking and they will explode.
Oh my
Is it also
God.
because you're forcing blood back into them a little bit quicker, or?
It depends. It can be. If they get a good vein and you do that, yeah, it'll like force blood back into them. But honestly, like the big thing is they get stuck and they just will not, their body just won't stop sucking. Because physiologically, they are built to suck as much in as fast as possible because, of course, like the longer you're on an organism, the greater risk it is you get smacked off. So they just have like a super pump system. And if they don't pull it out themselves, it'll just keep going.
How much can they suck in? And then how long does it take for them to process it?
They can suck in quite a bit. I think some of the research suggests like 2 to 3 times their body weight can be from a blood meal. Like you can really see the abdomen expand. How long does it take them to process? Usually like one blood meal will be enough for their entire life. Mosquitoes, of course, have huge life cycle, like huge generation time. So there's multiple generations per year. But I think most species live about a week, and one blood meal will be enough to lay like millions of eggs.
Wow.
Jeez.
That's insane. I actually had a question about mosquitoes too. When I was younger, I watched this survivalist. He was called the Survival Man. And one of his episodes, he was like telling us about like mosquitoes and like just the diseases and stuff they carry, but they're not the disease question. But so his suggestion was that if you see a mosquito, was to, instead of like smacking it, is actually just to flick it off of you. Because if you smack it, you like actually jam their little sucker thingy like into your body sometimes, and that can be problematic.
Yep, that's absolutely true. And if you smack them, like if you smack them on your arm, that also forces anything that they'd sucked in back into you. So they're spitting back in you, which greater increases the risk of them transferring disease to you as well.
Okay,
I'd also
cool.
imagine, like, if you smacked one of them on your arms, wouldn't that put their pheromone on your arms and attract more?
It can sometimes. It can also be a warning to not. It's not as powerful as something like the CO2 you're exhaling. That is like the big attractant to them.
Huh. That is
Interesting.
pretty cool.
Wait, they're attracted to the CO2.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of hoping like I could blow in their face and they would just be like, and they die.
No, it's actually worse. If you start like kind of just blowing them away, then you're going to get more and more towards you.
That's interesting.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So CO2 is a big one. Also, the compounds that your sweat releases, some of your own pheromones, they use that to attract towards you as well. It can also be heat. They can sense body heat. So they'll be able to kind of see you through the forest based on your body heat and then also sense you through the chemicals and the CO2.
I just want to say,
did not know that mosquitoes were so wicked.
I hate bug repellent. I absolutely hate putting it on. It feels gross. I honestly don't feel like it really does anything. I mean, does it? Or does it like, is it just like, what do they call it? What do they call those tests?
I know what you're talking about. A placebo.
Thank you. Is it just like a placebo effect?
So it's kind of interesting. And it's interesting because this topic is actually one of the things I teach at the university. One of the courses I teach is on insecticide use and how it actually works at a molecular level within insects. And in general, mosquito repellents work pretty well. They're fairly short-lived though, so you have to apply them every couple of hours for them to be really effective, which of course is even more gross because you're getting more of the compound on you and everything.
It just feels gross.
Yeah. It's because of the oils that they also have to put into the repellent. Like most of the chemicals that are actually active, mosquito repellents can only be dissolved in oil. And so you're applying all this extra oil on top of your skin and it feels sticky and gross. So a lot of mosquito repellents can work, but a lot of the ones that are on the market today aren't as effective because the really effective ones were banned because they're actually, really bad for the environment or bad for us, or they've just, been used for so long over the past couple of decades that the mosquitoes are also resistant to them. They know they're not going to actually die via being around them or actually being on your arm. And so they just go towards your arm no matter what.
Oh, lovely. Is there a good natural solution?
Yeah, so there's a couple of good options. One is the citronella candles. If you're outside like on a deck or having like a bonfire, if you just light one of the citronella candles, they're really good at deterring mosquitoes. There's some chemical interaction associated with the actual chemical citronella that mosquitoes just hate, and most insects do. Also, the CO2 releasing like bug zapper things are really good. If you have those around you, they'll attract most of the mosquitoes away from you and are very effective at getting rid of them in a small proximity.
I feel like those electric bug zappers is just awful. I don't really like all insects, but I hate the feeling like you're literally just deep frying them in the air, and that I'm sure it's just not fun.
No.
It's not humane.
The problem with a lot of the CO2 releasers is they also use light, and both using the CO2 and light to try and attract the mosquitoes is going to attract everything else as well. You're going to get all the moths to the light, and you're going to get all the other flies to the CO2 and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, they're effective. And I would say, like, if you need something in the short term, they're good for if you're just doing a bonfire or something, but you will be killing a bunch of other stuff.
Noted.
Interesting. You'd be really interesting to go on a camp out with, because you'd be like, the rest of us are all like smacking each other, and you're just like, just let it happen. Just let them come.
The thing is, too, is if you start smacking them, it's also going to irritate your skin. And the itchiness that you get from mosquitoes is actually an allergic reaction. So if your body recognizes that you are not comfortable with this thing that's on you, and then you irritate your skin by smacking it or scratching it right after it happens, the swelling gets like 100 times worse and the itching gets 100 times worse. If you just let the mosquito finish feeding, even if you feel a little prick, then you get a lot less of that irritating chemical. It's a neurotoxic chemical that they inject in you, and your allergic reaction is a lot lower.
That is cool. That would have saved me so much more time as a child.
I kind of want to go into the irritants of things that nature does to you, things that might annoy you the most. I'm referring to a video that you had posted, I think it was on your Facebook, and it was you were addressing the fact of like, what's the worst sting you've ever gotten?
Oh, yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily a sting from an animal or a bug. It was more or less from something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was from a plant.
Do you want to talk about that real quick?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been stung by a lot of insects. Probably the worst one was the tarantula hawk wasp, which is a giant wasp in Arizona. I was doing field work, and yeah, that was pretty bad. But the worst thing I've ever experienced was when I was doing some field work. We had just finished and we went to a swimming hole nearby, and I was in my swim trunks and, a lot of skin out. And I tripped and fell into a bush next to the water, and it happened to be stinging nettle. And stinging nettle is the worst. Oh, God. And then I just got it all over my body, everywhere. And I was just like in hives for like a week and a half. And yeah, that was really bad. I would say like insects have some good defenses, and they are very almost instantaneous. Like you get the pain and then it's over with though. But plants are really bad at having really dangerous chemicals that will last either like forever or for a very long time and just like completely deter anything from ever touching them again. And a lot of that has to do with insects can get away after, right? Like they can sting you and then they can run away while you're in pain and then you're fine. But plants have evolved because they know they're stationary. They want you to know, never come in contact with me again, and I'm always going to be here. So they have some really potent defenses.
Dang.
Plants are scary.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one local species, and I've luckily never come in contact with it on my skin. A friend of mine has, though, and it's called giant hogweed. It was in the news a number of years ago, a whole bunch. But the news was telling everybody, don't touch it, don't like get rid of it, get like the city to come and actually remove it. And they would come in full hazmat suits and everything, because the plant itself has this chemical called a sorolin, gets in your skin, and it makes your skin hypersensitive to UV. And you will always, like, you cannot have that skin in the sunlight ever again, because it will just burn instantly. You will get 3rd-degree burns from the sun instantly if you got some of the phloem from that plant on your skin. It's awful.
That's your entire body then, I'm assuming, because it just absorbs into the system.
Well, no, it's more localized. Like it will get into the skin cells, and then I'm not sure exactly all of the processes involved with how it makes it so sensitive, but it does stay in like the deep skin and right in a local area. It doesn't spread too much. But if you break it open and you happen to have like a short sleeve shirt on, you're going to get a lot on you, and it's really bad.
Oh my gosh.
So you just become a vampire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, if it's localized, so like, let's say it only brushes onto your hand.
Yeah.
And that's it. Nothing else gets on you whatsoever. I mean, in the hypothetical situation, that probably wouldn't happen. But does that now mean that you'd have to wear a glove on your hand for the rest of your life? Or is that
anytime you go out in the sun? Yeah.
Okay.
Or a lot of sunscreen.
Dang.
That's insane.
There's some, I don't encourage you to look it up, but if you're interested, you can look up giant hogweed in Google, and like there's some pretty bad and graphic images of people that have gotten it on them, and the amount of like 3rd-degree blistering that happens right afterwards, because it acts instantaneously and then it's there forever. It's really bad.
Oh, hey, I looked it up.
I was just going to say, I think I'm good.
Big old blisters, and I'm just like, I want to poke them.
Oh no. So painful.
No, I mean, they're painful either way. Might as well get it out.
Oh my gosh. I mean, on a brighter topic, since we're on the loose discussion of plants, is there such thing as a queer plant?
I mean, my argument is all plants are queer.
Oh, okay.
Because most plants are able to self, like they're able to inseminate themselves. That's pretty clear in of itself. And then there's all kinds of weird stuff that plants are able to do. Like under stress, some plants are able to spontaneously start to grow seeds when they might have been like a more pollen-bearing plant before. There's a lot of plants that have some weird genetic stuff that happens, like plant gametes are hugely variable, like in size. Often, like when we talk about, sex as determinant by their sexual gametes, like whether they're Y or X chromosome, like plants X and Y, quote unquote, are very weird in size and shape. And they can also be like different things and different combinations of each of those things. In terms of how they actually genetically reproduce, they reproduce in weird, queer ways, like can get polyploidy, where plants will just suddenly like triplicate or quadruplicate their genome from one generation to the next. And they are still reproductively viable with the previous generation, but they are sometimes so physically different than the previous generation and all of their neighbors. It's wild, what plants do. And the same thing with fungi and everything. Like, yeah. As soon as you steer away from talking about like mammals, things get very weird.
So it's really cool.
Plants do have like X and Y chromosomes then.
They can, yeah. So, I mean, in a very ancestral context, right? So they separated out from, our common ancestor millions and millions and millions of years ago. And we had a very similar ancestor which had sexual reproduction, but their gametes from that point onwards changed so dramatically that we call them X and Y. So it's easier to be able to talk about, this flower is a male flower, this flower is a female flower. But the actual gametes as part of them are so vastly different from our own.
Interesting.
I'm learning so much. I love this.
Well, okay, queer plants, but is there such thing as a queer insect?
Oh, yes. So, I mean, the insect family I'm most familiar with, the ants, they are so vastly different from us sexually. It's incredible. So in an ant colony, there is, just like ants in general, they reproduce via this sexual characteristic called haplodiploidy. And what that means is that males are haploid. They have one set of the genes. The females are diploid. They have two sets of the genes. So they don't even really have a Y chromosome anymore. Now, the males do look physically, like in a very similar context to the males of other species. So they have a penis and their physiology is slightly different. But aside from that, the genes that they have is just identical to the females. Just the females have two sets of them. And then the females are everything else. So you have the queens, and then they selectively choose, okay, this egg is going to get two sets of these gametes, these genes, and then it becomes a female worker. And then they can actually go beyond that and start to select the cast. So we get this worker is going to look like it's going to have a big head, big mandibles, and small body. That means it's going to be a soldier. This worker is going to have small body, very small stature, and it's going to be a scout. It's going to be able to wander around and find things really quickly. And so they've gone kind of beyond our form of sexual selection and are able to select for themselves what are the best characteristics to have in my colony at this time genetically, which is really incredible. And so they mate in a very similar way, penis inserts to the vagina and you get like insemination. But again, aside from that, there is like such a vastly different system than we have ourselves, and calling them male and female is really, in a way, problematic in some ways, depending on what characteristics you're talking about. Then there's other things. There are many insect species which are asexual. They reproduce not via a sexual system, via cloning or something like that, at least for part of their life. So most insects have some life stage which they are sexual, but things like aphids, they spend a vast majority of their life producing clones of themselves. So you have one generation which is sexually mated, a male and a female, and then that female goes out and starts a colony on a plant and then starts to just clone itself. It's like, okay, baby making machine, let's get as many of myself on this plant as possible, steal as many resources, and then after a certain amount of generations of that and how many resources they've taken from the plant, they will suddenly spawn a male and a female. And that's just based on internally separating their own gametes and making something new. And the aphids themselves actually give live birth, and the aphid female can be pregnant with their granddaughter. That's how fast they reproduce. So, and then you get into bees and wasps, and they have a different system. It's haplodiploidy, but in a different way from ants. And cockroaches and termites have their own system as well, which is still different. Like insects in general, they have been so successful and so diverse, like their generation times are so fast, and they've had so many millions of years being on this planet that they have just created all kinds of systems. A lot of our own interpretation of how sexuality, sexual reproduction works is based on categories. So we make things simple, but nature's not simple. Even if you go down to the individual human level, nature is not simple. But this is, how we interpret it to the best of our ability.
Wow, oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, just like talking.
Mind blown.
Sparrow, your turn.
Sparrow?
Sorry. Paradox, it's your turn. I'll keep asking questions nonstop unless someone energizes.
Oh, I know. I'm just sitting here just really enjoying like just all of these fun facts and like just things that like I had no idea. I mean, I knew that like nature obviously had a better way of going about things like sex and gender and like when everything, but like wow. That's crazy.
It gets crazy out there.
That's insane. Like, oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway, gosh, I don't remember. Did we ask like what your favorite insect is?
Not yet.
Oh yeah, what is your favorite insect?
Yeah, like that would be cool.
If
like,
you can't pick
is
one, list off like your top 3 or 5.
Yeah. Well, so one of my top is this species called Lethoceros americanus. It's the giant water bug. I love it because when I was growing up, it was one of the first insects that I raised in captivity and was really successful with. I had an aquarium and just kept a whole bunch of them. And it was one of the big sparks for me really getting into insect keeping and also just entomology in general. I mean, ants.
Huge.
Oh, there's so many cool facts about them too. Like in terms of edible insects, there's a couple of species in that same genus from India where they use them to make barbecue sauces because they have a pheromone that tastes like a really good umami barbecue sauce. Ooh. And I've had it. And it's so perfumey, but also just so good. It's really, really cool.
Oh my gosh.
And then, ants are, of course, on my top. I study them primarily, and like I've fallen in love with them from the social aspects and all the diversity and all the life history traits. And I didn't really intend on getting into them. I just kind of happened to fall into my lap where I was working at a local museum in high school, and they asked if I wanted to learn about ants, take this ant taxonomy course because they wanted some work done on the ants. And I said yes. And then I just kind of like propelled the rest of my career. But I think they're really, really cool now, and I do not regret going into studying them. One of the things I really wanted to get into studying was this group of insects called the true bugs, or the hemipterans. They are things like kissing bugs, but also leaf hoppers and frog hoppers, and they're like really interesting group from multiple standpoints. Like they have some big agricultural pests, but there are also some really important pest regulators and predators like assassin bugs, and they just like they're pretty understudied. Nobody really gives them much attention aside from what they can do for us. And so I always wanted to study them more broadly and add to the taxonomy and the natural history, because there are many groups which we just like, there are estimates of thousands of species and we just have none of them recorded. And so I would love to study them more sometime in the future. But again, I sink my teeth into like any insect topic and I run wild with it. I love studying them in general. And there's like super cryptic groups like the web spinners, which are just like the cutest things, but also really, really cool natural history wise. And they live in the weirdest places. Like most of the species from this one group are all tundra endemic. So cool.
Are there bugs in the Arctic at all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's pretty much any system you go on the planet, there will be insects. Now, if you're in the middle of like the actual frozen wasteland of Antarctica, there won't be anything. But you can get pretty cold and there will still be insects. There's a lot of frozen lakes in the Arctic and some places in the Antarctic where there are specialist fly species. So they have lifespans of hundreds of years. And a lot of that is encompassed by them waiting for the lake to thaw and open up. And then they go to the surface, they feed on any plankton and algae and protozoa that start to grow on the surface once it's warm enough. And then they dive back down into the really cold depths and they pretty much turn their body off. They don't freeze, they just kind of turn everything off. And then they go dormant for decades, if not centuries. And then they come back up, do the same thing, and then eventually become adults, reproduce, and then lay eggs and have the same life cycle again in this frozen lake. It's really cool.
That is really cool. What would you say is the most overrated and the most underrated bug?
Overrated insects, I gotta go with butterflies.
I thought you were going to say fly.
No. Yeah, butterflies, like, I still love them. I still think they're really cool, but they are the charismatic megafauna of the insects. And by that, I mean, like, everybody wants to study them because they're the pretty thing. They're like, I mean, everybody loves monarchs, right? Like, everybody gets into them and thinks they're the coolest thing. And they are cool, but you don't need like thousands of research papers on how the migration works and like how the life cycle works and trying to conserve them and stuff like that. It's a bit overkill, in my opinion. And I mean, humans will be attracted by the things that are pretty, but I think there's so many other cool things that could be studied that they are a good gateway in, if you're a kid especially. But after that, you gotta branch out, see all the things that are to be able to be seen, because there's just so much more. Oh, and then underrated. I'm gonna backtrack a bit and say the mosquitoes.
Oh, I thought you were gonna, dang! I thought you were gonna say the ant.
No, so I would say ants are borderline on the overrated now. Like, they are pretty well studied and a lot of people really like them. There's a lot of stuff we can still study with them, and I think they are a good attractant for funding and stuff like that. But they have quite a bit of attention because of the last 100 years and people starting to keep them as pets and stuff. But with the mosquitoes, like, I think they're underrated from the perspective that everybody hates them, right? They're disease vectors, they are a nuisance, and nobody likes them for those reasons. But I think when you go down into their history, like ancient evolutionary history, and also other species that are non-blood sucking, you get some really cool diversity. Like, there are some species of mosquito which are pollinators, really important forest pollinators. Mosquitoes just love protein, and that's why they love blood. But some mosquitoes have evolved to love the protein, which is, pollen, which is really awesome. And then there are also some really cool evolutionary ties to humans. At least there is this really fascinating theory with mosquitoes, and I think there's pretty good evidence for. But because mosquitoes transmit so much genetic material in the form of viruses, yes, but also just by spitting into us, they have a huge association with humans and mammals in general. And one of the origins of the mammal placenta, the organ which allows us to have internal like childbearing and live birth, which of course allows for, metabolism and like greater brain development and all of this stuff. The reason why we are so smart today is because we think a disease was transferred via mosquitoes as the vector, which gave us a section of DNA, which allowed us to have an internal birthing mechanism. And like, there's some really, like I say, really good evidence that mosquitoes were that vector, which allowed that to be possible. And it's kind of crazy to think that we wouldn't be humans today if it wasn't for mosquitoes. And then so many people want to just commit, like a genocide on them because they are transmitting these diseases, which are also potentially beneficial in some ways.
So with that being said, how far-fetched is Jurassic Park?
Yeah.
Like, how far-fetched is it to make a dinosaur?
So I think it's a lot easier to make a dinosaur via the genetic material we already have, via, like the existing crocodiles and birds and all of that. We could genetically engineer something down to be very similar to what the dinosaurs were back then via that genetic material, rather than taking broken DNA from the mosquito captured in amber. I don't think it's that feasible to use mosquitoes for that, but it is possible. Like, you realistically, if you had the technology to build DNA at that level, you could do it.
There was, cool. I'm trying to think. I read it in like a Google News article. But this, I don't know if it was a restaurant that did this or if it was the scientists in themselves, but someone actually grew like lab grown woolly mammoth
Yep.
meat.
Yep. I saw
And I'm
that.
like, what?
Yeah.
Why?
So it's a lot easier to do that with mammoths because, I mean, they've only been extinct for like a number of thousands of years, not millions. And then you have a lot of actual good tissue samples from mammals that are fully frozen in the Arctic. And there's a bunch of other species that's very similar to. There's some good tissue samples of things like giant sloths, some Arctic species of giant cats, stuff like that. And yeah, I saw that article, and yeah, like if you get enough cells from like tissue, you can very easily grow tissue in lab cultures now from anything. And now you don't get very specialization, so you can't like grow a whole organism, of course, from that, but you can grow that specific kind of tissue fairly easily.
I mean, just the idea of maybe even trying to bring a woolly mammoth back to life. Like, I get like the whole, like, yes, let's research this and stuff. But I mean, why would you want to bring it back? That thing is destructive. Like, it is probably worse than an elephant.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I don't see the reason why we would want to bring that back into nature.
I mean, there's a scientific reason of just it's cool and maybe you want to keep them in zoos or something. I mean, if you did reintroduce them to the tundra and stuff like that, like North American tundra, you wouldn't be doing too much negative to the environment. Like the one thing about bringing back big mammals is a lot of big mammals, especially herbivores, don't have that big of an impact on the ecosystem. And when you have something like a mammoth, which would have very slow generation times, it would be very difficult for it to overrun an ecosystem. Now, you don't necessarily still want to do it. There are a bunch of ethical reasons of like, well, this is nature's course. Should we be doing this kind of thing? We are a part of nature. But I mean, that can be said for any kind of conservation as well. Like, what kind of effort are you going to put in for that stuff? One of the interesting things that I think about with the mammoths, though, is there are some tree species which are going extinct because there are no mammoths.
Oh.
There's a species of tree it's like the Arctic Circle around, I don't know if there's any native species in North America now. There are actually at the University of Guelph where I work, there is an arboretum, a collection of live trees. And we actually have one of the trees in the arboretum itself. But I think they're mostly endemic to a lot around like Sweden and stuff like that. But this species of plant, the fruit and seeds require the pressure from a mammoth stepping on it to germinate. Like they will not germinate unless they've been digested and then stepped on by a mammoth. The reason why we still have them today is because they live hundreds of years, and then we've bred them by feeding them to elephants. Elephants will be able to do the same thing, and they process them in the same thing, but they are not like cross ecosystem. Like they don't occur where elephants do because it's too cold where they naturally grow. But yeah, it's just like, it's cool that we still have species that rely on things like that to this day.
I just imagine this tree. It's like, step on me.
I haven't had a baby in thousands of years. Please feed me to an elephant, humans.
Going from a large mammal to microscopic.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the tardigrades?
Oh,
the indestructible tardigrades.
The water bears. They're so
bears.
Cool. They're really surprisingly common. They're another group of organisms which are actually fairly related to insects on a genetic level, but also like understudied. Like everybody talks about tardigrades, but there's no funding for them. So we don't actually get specialists that talk about like natural history and taxonomy and are actually identifying them to a large scale degree. But you can find them out in your backyard. Like most mosses, if you collect a sample of them and put them underneath a microscope, you'll probably see some tardigrades. And they're so weird from so many different perspectives, especially molecularly, like the proteins that they make in their bodies and how long they're able to survive and under what conditions they're able to survive is just unreal.
It's
like
insane.
It's so cool.
Like, I think they took a tardigrade to space and exposed it, and it still survived. I'm just like,
it's the longest lived tardigrade in space is, I think, a week and a half.
It's like, I mean, and the pressure's up there too, you know? So I'm just like, I can't, How do you kill a tardigrade? That's the thing, but I don't want to ask you that because that's not fair.
I mean, probably the easiest means is
Clorox.
desiccating them. No water.
Oh,
Like, the thing about space is they can freeze and will maintain their water content, and so will survive pretty well. But water bears really do need the water. And if they're away from it too long or they're able to dry out, then they're kind of done for.
I mean, they're oddly kind of cute, and they do have little claws, like little bear claws.
They're so cute. They're creepy in a way because of, the mouth and everything. But when you're watching them moving around, it's like this thing is microscopic. How is it able to have, it's like the smallest thing that has separated appendages. And that is the coolest thing to me too, is like, you're smaller than most cells. How do you have legs?
Like, you're so fragile, yet you're so strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
And I mean, nature has all kinds of really like crazy mechanisms. It's actually one of the things I was talking to my husband about a little while ago was we were watching Star Trek, and Star Trek focuses a lot on, the cultures and the people of these planets and stuff. And then they have all this technology which can make really cool things. But I think one of the underappreciated things, if you were in space and you found an exoplanet that had life, is that life would be specialized for extremist conditions on that planet. And those organisms would biologically have made mechanisms to utilize really weird resources, right? Like, even if you look on our planet, like, there are so many insects which are able to survive being frozen for literally hundreds of years because they have proteins in their body which will freeze the water in circular spherical patterns so their cells don't break. And then when they thaw out, that water maintains its shape, and then they maintain their shape and they're safe. That's the reason why we die when we freeze, is our cells die, because water freezes jaggedly, but they've overcome that. And then there are other species which will actually can survive being desiccated for hundreds of years. There's a few species of mosquito in Africa which survive in dry riverbeds for hundreds of years. And then as soon as a flood comes, they rehydrate and will be able to be like, will start to grow and reproduce and divide. And it's like, we've become specialized for water. There are undersea vents for like chemosynthetic organisms, which rely on the heat and these really weird toxic chemicals. But if you were to look at other planets, like, there could be organisms surviving by eating metal. There could be organisms which literally like grow tissue which is made of metal. There could be insects which are able to super grow tissue really fast. Like, there is an infinite like realm of possibility based off of how evolution can work. And that's untapped in sci-fi, I feel like.
I would have never made that connection before. Now I will.
Yeah. I encourage everybody, like, if you're interested in like weird extremophiles, like, do some reading on things like undersea vents and brine pools and like frozen wastelands like Antarctica and the Arctic. Like, you will learn some really weird things that insects are like organisms in general have evolved to be able to handle that just seem like incomprehensible. Like, it genuinely seems like something from another planet, because it really is. They're able to survive in such a weird way that, I don't know, it's just mind-blowing. And 100%, if you took some of those chemosynthetic like bacteria and put them on a planet that has just barely good enough conditions to survive, you could colonize and like terraform an entire planet. There's no doubt in my mind. Like, it's wild.
It's almost like how odd it is, like the sea creatures that can literally be right next to an underwater volcanic vent that is venting like super hot water, and they're totally just going about their day, no big deal.
And they're thriving on it. Like, they're in temperatures of hundreds of degrees Celsius, on top of like those underground volcanoes are spewing high sulfuric content compounds, high metal, like heavy metal compounds, and they eat that stuff and then grow from it. Like, what
blows your mind? Like, I sometimes I'll watch like just like this kind of random documentary at night where I'm trying to fall asleep, and I'm just like, how is that possible?
And then when you get into the actual like the chemistry and the biochemistry along with those processes, it's like, and this is again, it connects to my own research with the insecticide work, because there are a lot of insecticides, there are a lot of compounds that we can't make. Like if we tried to make them in the lab using just our basic chemistry tools, it would be so expensive that it's just unreasonable. And then in nature, these organisms can make these highly complex molecules, which are very dangerous, with trash, literally trash from the environment. They stick it together based off of, these little molecular machines that they've made in their body evolutionarily. And they can do it like so cheaply, like energetically, it costs nothing. And it would cost us millions of dollars to try and make that possible. And when you get into the chemistry of these chemosynthetic organisms, like those reactions that they are making happen are astronomically insane. If you just look at our basic building blocks, the powerhouse of the cell, the mitochondria, and ATP, right? Like ATP is boring for basic biochemistry students because you're forced to learn this chain of chemicals, all these letters, and oh my gosh, it's going to drown you in like your own bored drool. But when you actually learn that the ATP is like a battery that is a million times more efficient than a car engine, like how does nature make that? How does it like know that, oh, this chemical is just like going to be really easy to make everything work? Like you are just this giant organism compared to this molecule, and it is literally fueling you every day of your life. Everything that you're thinking, you're touching, you're talking, you're sensing, it's all because of a little battery that nature made. It's like, oh my God. Oh,
it's such a joy to listen to you talk because I can hear the passion as you're talking about specific things. And it's just a joy. Such a treat to listen to it.
I'm so glad because I try and convey that when I teach courses at the university. And like, this is one of the reasons why I love science communication with the fandom is like, this fandom is people that love animals, right? Like,
yeah.
And they are the easiest people to reach when you just say cool animal or cool nature things because they're already invested. And then you're like, you know, that animal you love? Did you know that, like, say a cat, the whisker is made out of this tissue and they sense things using this chemical pathway? Isn't that crazy when you make a fursuit like that? You're mimicking this. It's like, and then people just go wild over it. And I love that. And I just want to share that with as many people as possible.
I'd love to see. Now, this would be some high, and this is my swear word for the day, some high technical shit if they're able to pull this off. But I would love to see a fursuit that's touch sensitive. So when you brush your hand across the fur kind of like moves like inwards, kind of like how I can't remember what the plant is that does it. There's a plant or a leaf. Or it retracts almost.
It's like the touch sensitive plants. I know what you're talking about. I don't know the family.
That would be so cool to see in a fursuit.
Yeah.
Or even like, not even a fursuit per se. I guess you could say like some of the more, I guess you could say sci-fi species or even a bug suit would be so cool to see that done.
And I mean, I've thought about it from, we see all these tech suits that are coming out, like the protogens and stuff. And you can very easily make circuits that like react to touch. So I don't know if I've seen it with sound.
You probably do like touch to color. That might work.
Yeah. So I've seen it with sound where some of the protogen suits will have microphones on them now and like react to the dance music that's around them. Like they'll start to have those synths on their visor and will react to whatever song's going on around them. But you could do that with touch. So if somebody touched your visor, it would leave like a fingerprint or something in a color. And I think stuff like that's really cool. And then on the front of like other species in the fur you're talking about, I've thought about it with like whiskers, right? Like if you had long whiskers on your face and somebody pet you and then you had that connected to an electrical signal that just made a light like buzz on that spot of your cheeks or something, you could literally feel somebody brushing your whiskers. And
sensory, that would be, they have immersive. They have like immersive suits. I've seen them. I'm sure they're expensive as hell, but it'd be really cool to incorporate that into a fursuit. So you're not just now bringing this character to life, you're now living as that character for that time being.
There's just a huge realm of possibility. And there's this here, I'm going to actually look up the name of this. It's like I guess they're incorporated as a company now, but it's like company that was started by furries that is literally researching how to become like your fursona and doing that through a variety of means like technology, genetics, all kinds of stuff like that.
What?
Yeah. So
that is rad. Oh, I want to know this now.
They have a Twitter account. So I did a podcast. There's a YouTube channel called Culturally Effed, and they talk about, furry fandom things. And they did a series of episodes on like, how would you make fursuits become more real or become your fursona? And they talked about this stuff. And then I was like a collaborator, what would you call it? Like an expert giving opinions on it. And they were also
Little
doing it on
consult.
this. And then we did a little podcast on it afterwards.
I just realized that there's this on your Twitter. You're right at the end of your name. There's a little like gray ant.
Yeah. Oh, so it's called Freedom of Form, the Freedom of Form Foundation. They have a Twitter account that's just Freedom of Form. And it's an actual company I think there's 5 people a part of it now. And they're applying for grants and stuff to do this kind of research. All scientists in all different disciplines, from computer science to genetics and all kinds of stuff. Not like, obviously we're way far out of, this is how you make a fursuit become like your fursona and you become your fursona through this like genetic technique or whatever. But there's little things like, one of the things that they've talked about on the profile is, of course, HRT. Like that is a way that you can combat some dissonance you have with your physical form, your dysmorphia. And it is very real. And there's a lot of research going on to the hormones, but also genetic techniques associated with it. What genes can you turn on and turn off to make those effects more pronounced? And that can be translated to genes that you would turn on or turn off to grow fur or to grow a tail and all of that stuff. Like this is actual real stuff you could potentially do. And we are hundreds of years away from that kind of technology. But being able to study it in the now is really, really cool and really real.
I always wanted a tail. I thought that would be really cool.
Right? Me too.
I think I could be just way more expressive with a tail.
Yeah. And along with that, with the idea of like whiskers that you could actually feel and stuff like that, there's a lot of technology that's been going on with like making, realistically moving tails and stuff like that. And I think if you were able to cross that with prosthetic technology where you move specific muscles in your lower back and you have specific muscle action, which is related to that tail, you could then start to actually have it move more naturally. And then if you were then to connect that with, again, electrodes to have nerve impulses be kind of simulated. Like there's really cool paraplegic and amputee technology that's coming out where you can connect, like say it's a prosthetic arm that connects at the elbow, you can actually get it reacting to all the muscles that are at the end of that arm and start to move the fingers.
I've seen that.
20 years ago, you would be able to use that to move 3 fingers and pick something up in a very crude fashion. But these days, there is actually really good technology where you can articulate all 5 fingers at like 3 joints. And that's insane to me, how fast that's grown. And it's just going to keep skyrocketing in terms of that technology. And we're going to get to these technical, additions in no time at all.
So speaking of fursuits, do you have any favorite fursuits, like bug fursuits or bug sonas out there that you like?
Oh, my heart. Like there's some really good ones that have come out. I think there was almost like a renaissance with the pandemic. You saw in general a lot of new fursuit makers and fursuit technology coming out. With the protogens again. But I feel like a lot of people got really into new and unique sona species. You saw I've seen aquatic organisms come up more frequently and a lot more like lemurs and stuff like that. But also invertebrates have come up so much. So one of my favorites is this account on Twitter called Kawaii Mothra. And they're one of the first moth suits I ever saw. And it is like the most adorable fursuit in the world. And it's so well made, so cute. There's a few other moths that I've seen popping up around. I don't know their exact names, but if you just search moth fursuit in Twitter in the search bar, which I do more than is probably healthy, it comes off. There's so many good ones. I've seen some good bumblebee ones popping up at cons recently. Very cool. There's a couple of really, really gorgeous peacock spiders, jumping spiders that have come up. There's a fursuiter named Jall, I think it is Jall, that is very new and gorgeous fursuit. There's one that I saw on Twitter, which is the quintessential peacock spider, beautiful looking one that just it's only a couple months old. so pretty. It's just, yes. I actually found the fandom through Bugsonas, funny enough. Like,
Oh, really?
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
I have the weirdest Sona joining story, I think.
I mean, we all have our weird ones. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I found mine through porn. So there you
Yeah,
go.
fair enough. I feel like that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And like I fell in love with it partially through that. I won't deny it. But I actually found the fandom because I was identifying insects on this website called bugguide.net, and somebody had linked out to a Fur Affinity where they had posted their insect photos and they wanted ID. They didn't like link it directly to the forum because they couldn't at the time. And so I went to this, I thought it was just an image sharing website, and I saw their insect and I was like, oh, this is a cool like website where people, like animals and they like make characters of these animals. So it must be a really cool like science, like making an anthro character to do like animal science website. And so I made an account and I identified the insect for this person. And, as soon as I made the account and like started to browse it, I was like, oh, this isn't just about insect photos, is it? And that person at the time had an insect Sona. It was actually like, quote unquote, it was a bee, but it was actually, the joke was it was a fly, like a bee mimic fly, which I thought was very funny. And I got to talking with this person, and they 13 years later are now my husband of 5 years.
Oh, that's cool.
Very small world. But yeah, I fell in love with like insect sonas and like insect characters and like the insect side of the fandom as the first thing. And it was very small back then. And it's funny that I didn't make an insect character, but I just like, I like studying them. I don't necessarily like being them. But yeah, and then I, of course, like everything cascaded from there. Like the fandom helped me like in finding my confidence and finding my community and finding my sexuality and identity. So that's how it stemmed.
That's really cool. I have been dying to ask this question, but have you ever played or heard of the game Bug Snacks?
I have heard of it. It is on my playlist. I haven't played it yet, and I'm very sad to say that I
It
haven't.
looks so okay. My friend has played it, and it looks so dumb. But like,
No,
I watched him play it. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna buy this game.
Okay. So my wife has played it a little bit, and like I've kind of watched them play it, and like it's so cute, but it's also kind of like stupid in a way. But like it's great. I love like all of the different species of like quote unquote bugs or whatever, but they're all just made out of like food. And like I love my favorite one so far is called a bunger, and it's like a hamburger. It's great. It's called a bunger, and like they say their own names, kind of like Pokemon.
Oh my god!
So you just go around just going bunger, bunger, bunger. My wife's favorite is called a snackery. And so it's like a daiquiri, but it's a snackery.
That's fun.
Yeah, they're really cool. So like, I mean, hey, if you ever get a chance to play it like in your spare time, I recommend. It's pretty fun.
I 100% am going to jump on it. Like I have a list of bug games that people have sent me when I was streaming, and then I got busy with finishing my PhD, so I had to stop streaming for a while, but it is like top of my list. When I get back streaming at the end of the summer, I'm going to like play the hell out of it.
Oh my gosh, I would love to watch you stream Bug Snacks. That'd be great.
What about all the bugs and the facts and stuff in Animal Crossing? How like accurate is that?
Quite accurate. I haven't played Animal Crossing myself, but my husband and one of my friends played it a lot during the pandemic, and I watched a lot. All of the natural history stuff in general as a part of the museum that you can contribute to is like, it's crazy how accurate and good it is. And like all of the bug facts that they give when you're collecting these insects, and just like how accurately they've depicted these species is so good. It's so cool. It's like out of everything that I saw them contribute, nothing was off about it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they really paid attention super well when making the museum stuff.
I really appreciate games that get like just stuff that's accurate. Yeah, the accuracy, that's what I'm saying. Like I'm not a huge fan of like, say, Assassin's Creed. My wife is. She, loves Assassin's Creed. I'm okay with it. Anyway, but like some of the stuff is actually really accurate, but like that and like stuff like Animal Crossing, with the neat like little facts and stuff that they throw in there. I just love when they have games that shoot, just really accurate stuff in there.
Yeah. Like, so have you heard of the game Webbed?
No.
It's a little indie game that came out a couple years ago during the pandemic, and it's like you're a jumping spider that your girlfriend gets kidnapped by a bird, and you have to go and try and find her. And like, it's so freaking accurate of all the insects. I highly recommend it because it's such a funny game. The platforming on it is really, really good and really
Huh.
fun. And like, they just throw all kinds of insect facts at you, but also like all the characters are really personable and really cute. And then you are like this dancing peacock jumping spider. And the amount of like detail they went into making you as like realistic to the species and the sexual dimorphisms and everything it's just amazing. I love that game.
I'm looking at pictures and it looks like such a cute, fun little side scroller. I'm gonna definitely have to pick this up and play it sometime.
Yes,
Oh
yes.
my god.
More recruit them to the web universe.
Yes.
The game I want to play that I've always wanted to play, but I've just never gotten around to it is Spore.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
same. I've heard a lot about it. And like when I was growing up, it was one of those games where like I saw so many clips, and then of course I forget the name of the series. My husband watched it a bunch, but it was like the McElroy brothers would like make weird things in different games, and they did a series on Spore. I loved watching that because the creatures you can make in it is so cool.
It looks
That's
like a really
awesome.
fun game.
Yeah, really like weird and silly, but really cool idea for a game. There's another one that I want to play through that's really cool from a biology perspective called Rain World. Have either of you heard of it?
I think I've heard
I
of
feel like I've heard
it.
of it. I don't think I've played it though.
No, it's like it's supposed to be a really, really difficult game, but the game's premise is you are like the bottom of the bottom, like food chain creature, and you're trying to get back to your fellow species. But all of the organisms in the game are like AI generated creatures, which are like scarily biologically accurate in how they respond to the environment, respond to you, and like move within the environment. I was watching like a video essay about how the developers made a lot of the AI behind the enemies in the game and the other various organisms, and how detailed they went into making it as like biologically accurate as a game could. And it's just like, it's so freaking fascinating. Like there's one creature in the game which stands out to me that they are initially hostile, but if you start to give them things that they like that you find around the game, they slowly respond better to you, and then their color changes. And then if you get one on your side, they'll start following you around. And if you bring them to various other places in the game, other creatures will respond to them like in a fearful way because they are predators of that species, or if they interact with related species to them, they will also start to follow you in a favorable way. And how all of that interaction happens is just like very slow progression and very natural. It's very weird and very organic.
It looks like a really cool game. I
It
wonder
does
if
look
my
cool.
husband has it. I bet he does. He plays a lot of games like this. But I
Yeah,
mean, it's got a high
me too.
rating. It's 9 out of 10 on Steam, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, super cool. It's another one on my like streaming to play games.
That's awesome.
What is the deadliest buggo out there
Good question.
besides humans? I'm just kidding.
From
Man, the deadliest. We're not
so from the human casualty perspective, it's going to circle back again, but the mosquito, it kills more people per year than almost anything else on the planet. I think it's around 5 million people die
oh
per
my
year.
god.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah. Or are like incredibly incapacitated. Like it's a lot. And it's really, really bad in tropical places where diseases like malaria are so bad because you can't, I mean, it's a fairly easily treatable disease in the Western world, but like if you don't have the right resources to deal with it, like it's very, very deadly. And it's like the leading cause of death in Africa. Like it's an interesting cross section with my research as well, because it goes back to the insect repellent, right? Like one of the things that was banned, DDT, and most people know is like this horrible compound and stuff. It's mostly because of how it was applied, and it is really persistent and really bad for the environment. But if you're using it small concentrations, it's really, really powerful and really beneficial for deterring mosquitoes. Like they sense it at very small concentrations, and it will like almost 100% deter mosquitoes from biting you. And so it's still really widely used in Africa, and it saves millions of lives per year because of that. But yeah, it's like, it's really, really sad. Like mosquitoes are a really, really big disease vector and like have some pretty serious diseases.
All right.
Well,
Good and bad.
I mean, it's funny because like we talked about mosquitoes in the beginning, then we brought it back to mosquitoes a little while ago, and we're almost now finishing off with mosquitoes.
Yeah. Yeah, mosquitoes, they're weird. They're like, they have a complicated history with us, and I think there are ways to deal with them that don't involve killing them all off and still allow them to be like a beneficial force in the world, but they are very, very scary insect at the same time, and very annoying insect.
You know, I think one question we didn't ask, and I'll make this the last question we ask you tonight.
Okay.
What is your favorite insect fact to tell that most people don't know? And I'm going to think, is it going to circle back around to the mosquito again?
No, not this time. Not this time, I don't think. Favorite insect fact to tell? It depends on the context. I have so many like little facts.
Let's
buzzing.
maybe one that pertains to the fandom, maybe?
Oh, that's a good idea. Oh, fandom related insect. I think
I made it hard for you.
no, like see, and it's funny because it's like I don't want to go on too long of a tangent with like these cool insects. I think probably one of my favorite ones that you could connect to the fandom is one of the most commonly like used moth species for the cute factor. For like, I see a lot of plushes of it being made, and a lot of the sonas that are very like a very fuzzy moth have a lot of characteristics that are sourced from it. Is this nocturnal species which is from South America. It's called the vampire moth, and it is like a moth that feeds on two things primarily. One, the tears of mammals, and two, if there is like wounds, it's like carrion, but also like sometimes they will also feed on like vampire bat wounds. They'll drink blood. And this is something that, so this is something that a lot of people don't realize about a lot of moths, is they are opportunistic feeders often. And because they are nocturnal, they feed on a lot of things that nocturnal things feed on, which is often scavenging things, carrion, feces, like all kinds of weird stuff. There's this thing that a lot of butterflies do called puddling, which is if a mammal pees, the urine is highly concentrated in things like uric acid. And it's actually really difficult for a lot of insects to get these compounds, which are high in ammonias, which, you know, you need for a lot of cell development. And so butterflies and moths will puddle or congregate on these puddles of urine and just slurp them up. And it is like, you see these beautiful organisms, beautiful colors, and then they're eating like the grossest, weirdest stuff. I would encourage you to look up like either vampire moth tears or like moth drinking tears, because there are some photos of moths just sitting on things like horses and cattle and just drinking out of their eyes. And it is like so creepy, but also so kind of cool.
I'm just going to go to work tomorrow.
Now, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to work tomorrow and be like, did you know that vampire moths drink your tears?
Like, that's a story you tell your kids to like
Says,
suck it up. Don't show your emotions.
Yeah. Don't cry.
Moths will come and drink your tears if you cry too much.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. That's crazy.
That is insane.
But when I tell you I have a million cool facts like that, I won't stop if you get me on this kind of stuff.
Well, that just means that we have to have you back again.
I would happily do so.
Yeah.
Talk about more fun facts.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I do
especially
too.
with having to reschedule last second.
Oh, no problem at all. Yeah, I love doing this kind of stuff. And again, like, science communication is my hobby. Like, I'm a freak and insects are my 24/7. And anytime I can have an excuse to like regale the beauties of nature to some awesome people like yourselves,
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I've definitely learned so much today. Like, oh my gosh.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear.
Yeah.
Before we let go, is there anywhere that people can find you? Do you have like specific social media outlets that you use the most that they can learn more about these wonderful things, so like insects and stuff?
Yeah, so you can find me at Entobird, Entobird, on pretty much everything. I have a YouTube channel, I do Twitch, TikTok, Twitter, and I haven't been able to post a lot lately because my life was consumed by writing my PhD thesis. But now that that is done, I am Dr. Doe. I'm going to get back to doing things like streaming on Twitch and talking about the wonderful world of bugs more often.
And we'll
That's
have those
awesome.
links for you guys down below. I think you have a card link. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so nice. I
One
love stuff like
spot,
that. It's the best. Well, if you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to send us an email at talktothemuzzle@gmail.com. And if we can, we'll try to relay them off to you to see if you have time to answer them. But we definitely will have you back again for another recording. Not much of an interview, but more like just delving into, your career, maybe just all these fun little like facts that we don't get to hear.
I would love that. Anytime at all. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, folks, any other questions you may have, you can reach us at From the Muzzle on Twitter. We have our Telegram group that you can always join and chat with a bunch of people because it's literally nonstop. It literally is. I'll like look at it in the morning. I'll be like 200 messages from like 10 p.m. last night till now. What's wrong with you people? Go to
I
bed.
just have to join. I'm joining as soon as this is done.
Just tons of people. They'll just talk. And it's fine. I like it.
That's awesome.
And I think that's about it. Do you have anything else, Paradox?
I don't think so. Thank you again for, coming onto the show. And it's been a pleasure. I've learned so much. And again, I'm probably just going to go to work tomorrow and be like, I learned all this yesterday and you have to hear it. So
Good.
yeah.
I'm so glad. That's the thing I hope for. Incite more passion within nature.
It's definitely like one of the most fascinating episodes, like recordings we've done before. So,
oh yeah,
that
for
makes me
sure.
so happy.
Yeah,
Yay.
oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Well, folks, you guys all have a great day, and Dr. Entobird will have you back again soon because we have to, because it was so much fun. And we'll see you guys on our next episode. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.